So now to tell you about the Agile methodology. See, Agile is an iterative and incremental approach. It's an iterative and incremental methodology, mostly used for software development projects, used in healthcare projects, process improvement projects. The Agile methodology, a pure Agile methodology, it cannot be used in your construction projects. Few things from here can be picked up and put into the predictive approach, your traditional waterfall methodology. When they mix it, it becomes the hybrid approach. So we are going to talk about all the three now. So first of all, let me explain the Agile methodology to you today, especially people who come from the construction projects and all. You don't need to get nervous actually. So you will understand this, or however you get this recording. You could actually, when you go through this couple of times, that would make the subject more easy for you. Now, when we say the Agile methodology is implemented using different frameworks. The most popular Agile framework is the Scrum. You have the Scrum framework, you have the XP called Extreme Programming, and you have the Kanban. You almost have 50 different frameworks of Agile. The most popular of these framework is the Scrum. Agile Scrum, you call it as. More than 70% of the Agile projects worldwide are done using the Scrum framework. The Agile Scrum in the software side, especially, is in great demand. You have certifications exclusively on Agile Scrum. You have the certifications called the CSM, the Certified Scrum Master, and on top of that, you have a certification called the Professional Scrum Master. Certified Scrum Master is where it's basically about the basics, the fundamentals. This is actually for the beginners. And PSM is a certification on the professional level. If you're new to Agile, then first you go for CSM. If you're already working in an Agile environment, then you could look at specializing, go for the PSM, $150. You have to go to uh, scrum.org website and pay the fee online, schedule your exam and give it, from home. So anyways, now let me explain the Agile Scrum framework to you. Scrum is the most popular Agile framework, and in Agile Scrum, let's understand few terms out here actually. You have a term called the Scrum team. When you say the Scrum team, it includes the product owner, it includes the development team, and the Scrum Master. In Agile Scrum, the team size will be, it would be 5 plus or minus 2. The maximum team size will be 7, and the minimum team size will be 3. That 7 should include everyone, the developer, the tester, the QA, QC guy. And then you have the product owner. He's more like a business analyst, an interface between the customer and the in house team. And the product owner is the person who manages the product backlog. Product backlog is a register wherein the requirements are listed. Requirements in Agile are referred by the name user stories. The requirements are referred as user stories. So whatever you call it as a requirement, like if you're developing a website, you want to show news on the website, that's a requirement. You want to integrate a payment gateway to the website, that's a requirement. You want to have a blog, that's a requirement. So those requirements in Agile Scrum framework are referred as user stories. So these user stories are listed in the product backlog, and this product backlog is managed by the product owner. So when you say the Scrum team includes the product owner, it includes the development team, and it includes the Scrum Master. In your traditional projects, you have a project manager. A Scrum Master is like a project manager in the Agile Scrum methodology, but he is not a guy who's moving around bossing. The Scrum Master is a servant's leader. You call him as servant leader. He's more of a facilitator. So you have the term Scrum team, and In fact, you have tools, you have very popular softwares called Jira, you have another tool called Rally. In these softwares, you can, like, for example, in Jira, you write user stories. In Jira, you create the product backlog. So the product backlog gives an overview of the entire product, right? And then see, you have like something called as the events or ceremonies. Basically, in Agile Scrum, you have four events or ceremonies. What are those events? The events are, see, the sprint planning, the daily Scrum, the daily Scrum meeting, the sprint planning meeting, the sprint review, and the sprint retro. These are referred as events or ceremonies. So when we say, the product backlog, it gives an overview of the entire product, whereas the sprint backlog, it gives a closer focus on the work of the product during a specific time period. In Agile Scrum, the requirements are given in installments. If you have 100 user stories, 100 requirements, like let us assume that you're pulling in three user stories in a go into the sprint. So if you're pulling in three user stories, so the three user stories will come and sit here in the sprint backlog. The sprint backlog gives a closer focus on the work of the product during a specific time period. And the sprint planning meeting, that is an event or a ceremony, it marks the beginning of a new sprint. So the sprint planning meeting event actually marks the beginning of a new sprint where the Scrum team establishes a plan for the upcoming sprint. They plan the upcoming sprint there. And daily Scrum, when we say, this is actually a meeting that happens once in 24 hours, where the development team will have to attend this, and also that the product owner and the Scrum master may also attend that. This is also called as the stand-up meeting, where the development team, the team has to come. They have to stand around the table, and everyone will get his turn, and everyone will have to speak about three things: what I did today, what I will do tomorrow, and if there are any blockers, any constraints. This is restricted to 15 minutes. Everything is time boxed here. Time box means definite time is allocated for each of the event. 15 minutes in 24 hours. So here you're not discussing how to remove the roadblocks. What better you can do in the next sprint is something that call is taken in the sprint retrospective. In short, you call it as the sprint retro. So there is a daily Scrum meeting event, and then you have something called as the sprint review. See, the sprint review happens at the end of the sprint. How things happen here is, if they're working on three user stories, then they pull in three user stories into the sprint. Three user stories from here will land here, and then these three user stories, if the duration of sprint, actually it could be 1 to 4 weeks, and if you decided that the sprint will be of 4 weeks, then in 4 week of time, the three user stories will have to go through the SDLC life cycle, and it has to come out as a finished work. So they pull in three user stories, it comes out as finished work, then they pull the next three user stories. There's nothing like a pipe or anything. This is just a duration. Like I said, everything is time boxed. The sprint duration is time boxed. The sprint planning meeting is time boxed. The daily Scrum meeting is time boxed. There's a definite time allocated to each one of them. If the sprint duration you took it as 4 weeks, that is like 1 month, right? The user stories are pulled into the sprint. Let me use a thinner line actually. So if the sprint is for 4 week, then for a 4 week sprint, what happens is at the end of the sprint, actually whatever user stories you pulled in, they have to come out as finished work that the product owner will showcase to the customer as part of sprint review. Who will attend the sprint review? The Scrum team will attend. When I say Scrum team, it includes the product owner, the Scrum master, and the development team. The team is referred as the development team. Here, the customer will come, see the finished work. Three requirements are finished per se. And looking at that, he may ask you to make some changes. A revision level, revision one, revision two, that would be rework. So the result of the sprint review will be where you go back for a replanning. This will go back and may add new user stories or slide the existing user stories. So this is a repetitive iterations, right? And the sprint is also referred as iteration. The word term is confusing. Iteration is used in two places. I said agile is an iterative and incremental approach. Iterative is this one, revision two till the customer accepts it. Incremental is on the previous delivery, the new delivery will add up three user stories adding up so that you call it as incremental. So the sprint review is where the product owner will invite the customer and demonstrate the finished work to him. So at the end of the sprint, there is a sprint review at the end of each sprint. Similarly, at the end of each sprint, there will be a sprint retro. Sprint retro is like documenting lessons learned in your traditional approach. In sprint retrospective, there are like three things that are discussed. One is what are we doing right that we should continue doing? Secondly, what are we doing wrong that we should stop doing? And thirdly, what is something that we are not doing? That is the sprint retro. So you have the event or the ceremonies. There are four of them. The sprint planning is an event. The sprint daily scrum or the stand-up meeting is an event. The sprint review is also referred as an event, and the sprint retro is also referred as an event. As a result of the sprint retro, this actually leads to process improvement, anything betterment that you could do in the upcoming sprints. And then you have the burn up and the burn down charts. The burn up, burn down chart, the two charts, one is burn up chart, the other one is the burn down chart. They are information radiators. In the following slides, I will show it to you like how it looks like. So burn up, burn down charts are information radiators. Burn down chart, uh, it shows amount of work which is remaining, and the burn up chart shows amount of work completed. In detail, we will see it in the following slides. So, like I said, the product backlog has the user stories listed in it. The product owner will manage the product backlog. In adaptive and hybrid projects, see the team is the development team. Sorry. So the development team actually is the principal leadership element rather than the project manager. The product owner decides what work the team will do, and the team plans the work they are given to perform. Everyone on the team contributes, but actually someone, may be responsible for ensuring a psychologically safe environment for the team. This person is sometimes referred as the scrum master or the, you know, coach, scrum coach, or they may call him as the team lead as well. So to tell you about the information radiators, like I said, the burn up, burn down charts are information radiators. Let me show you a small video on that as well. So even before I run that video for you, like I said, the product owner decides what work the team will do, and the team plans the work they are given to perform. And everyone on the team contributes, and you also have the Scrum coach for a psychologically safe environment. Product owner actually decides objectives according to customer needs and wants. And the development team executes the work and helps the product owner plan the work. So a product backlog is a prioritized list of work for the development team that is derived from the roadmap and its requirements. So the most important items, high risk and high value items, are shown at the top of the product backlog so that the team knows what to deliver first. So allow me to run a small video for you, on information radiators.
90% of all the information transmitted to the brain is visual. Not surprisingly, visuals are processed 60,000 times faster than text. We are wired to automatically interpret patterns for instant comprehension with almost zero effort. Want to see some examples? What do you see right away? A different shape. And with this one, a different size. And with this one, a different color. That brings us to an information radiator. An information radiator is a type of visual control that displays project information in a place where passersby can see it and get information without having to ask questions. The far left column of this example starts with the project charter. This lists the project's primary objectives, key features, and cautions and risks. It also lists those who have key roles in the project's completion: the product owner, the architecture owners, and the team lead. Finally, it provides a glossary of project terms which may not be widely known. The next column of this example indicates any impediments and blockers that are slowing or preventing progress on the project. This includes both known and outstanding blockers, and those that have been mitigated or completed. The bottom of this column provides a convenient place for the color coding to reside. In this case, green for done, blue for started, red for blockers, and yellow for dependencies. The large center section of this example shows the product backlog. It also shows the iteration backlog, the specific tasks being worked on by members of the team in the current iteration. The far right section of this example shows the iteration burndown, the rate at which the team is burning through its customer stories. This can tell the team whether they are on track, ahead, or behind the committed work. It also shows the release burn up. This monitors progress of release commitment iteration by iteration and gives the team a projection of when they will meet their release goal. And finally, it shows working agreements. These agreements detail how the team will work together and what they can expect of each other. Of course, this is just an example. Your information radiator should be customized to meet the needs of your team.
Yes, sir. So the sprint retro, like I said, is where actually at the end of the sprint you discuss three things. Like at the end of each sprint, you discuss about what are we doing right that we should continue doing, what are we doing wrong, if anything, that should stop doing immediately. And the third thing is what is something we are not doing on this project that we should start doing immediately. Like in your traditional projects, you document lessons learned. Lessons learned in terms of for each of the knowledge area, you document what went right, what went wrong, like related to the say the quality area of the project. What went right as per the quality management plan? There was a quality management plan prepared for the project. What all went right as per that? What went wrong or what needs improvement? And thirdly, if you're given a chance to rework that way again, how will you do it? So that is what you do in your traditional project that you call it as lessons learned. Similar to that, you have the sprint retro in Agile Scrum framework. Now, to tell you about the information radiators, and there's one more term that I will have to tell you about is the story point. I told you about the user stories. I told you that user stories are listed in the product backlog. And these user stories that are listed here are nothing but requirements. And these requirements, these user stories are initially estimated in terms of story points. So you have the term user story and you have the term story points. You have the term user story and user stories are estimated in terms of story point. So the information radiator, if you look at here on my screen right now, what you see here is actually a burn down chart. The burn down chart actually it shows the work remaining. The burn down chart shows the you know it shows the work remaining. So if you look at this dotted line, actually, this is the burn down plan. And this thick line that you see is like how the story points are being done. Like, for example, if you look at here, like, the iteration based projects, they use burn down charts to see where the project is going over time. So this figure that you see is there in your Agile practice guide. It's on page number 62. Here you see an example of a burn down chart where the team has planned, say, the team has planned, say, 33 story points. This axis, you have the scope of the project given in terms of story points. You have the scope given in terms of these are story points actually. So, like say the team has planned to deliver 33 story points. If you look at here, like starting from your day 3 to day 5, there were no story points churned out here actually. It's the same thing actually. Starting even day 3 to day 5, it was only like say 28 story point that was churned. Nothing much happened during this time. Similarly, nothing much happened this time. If everything is happening as per the plan, then this thick line will merge with this dotted line. So you have the concept of story point. You need to understand the difference between user story and story point. So story point is an indispensable technique for performing initial estimation. A story point is a metric used in agile project management to estimate the difficulty of implementing a given user story. In simple terms, a story point is a number, 1, 3, 4, a number like that. It's a number that tells the team about the difficulty level of the story. Like, for example, a story that is assigned 2 story points should be twice as much as a story that is assigned 1 story point. If you have a user story that is assigned 3 story points, and you have another user story that is assigned 7 story points, so it would be taking more than 2 times effort. That's what it indicates actually. So you use a relative measure, like they use numbers from the Fibonacci sequence to show the level of difficulty or complexity of a feature. When you say Fibonacci sequence, you have the numbers 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34. It goes up to 100. Below 1 is 0. If you assign a 0 to any user story, it means not enough information. You don't have much information to assign the story points. If any user story is assigned a 100 value, 100 card, it means it's too big an item actually that will not fit in one iteration, one sprint. So the story points are used to represent the size, complexity, and effort needed for completing or implementing a user story. Each user story is assigned a number from the Fibonacci scale. The higher the number, the more complex the story and presumably the amount of effort it will take to complete. So you have the burn down chart, and then you have the burn down and the burn up charts are there on page number 62 and 63 in your Agile practice guide. What you see right now here on my screen is page number 62, and then this is on page number 63. This is a burn up chart. The burn up chart shows the work completed. The burn down chart was showing you the work remaining. This shows the work completed. Again, this is the dotted burn up plan. These are the story points that have been completed. In the previous one, it was the story points remaining actually. So how many story points have been churned out like day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5? Till the day 10, actually, it's like story points are, you know, say if this is like 28 or 29 of them. So like I said, every event is time boxed in the Agile Scrum. If the duration of the sprint is 1 month, for a 1 month sprint, you call this as sprint or you call this as iteration also. 1 month sprint or 1 month iteration. It could be 2 week sprint also. 1 to 4 weeks you could pick between that. If you have chosen a 4 week sprint or iteration, for a 4 week sprint, the duration of the sprint retro will be 3 hours. You do the sprint retro at the end of the sprint. And this sprint retro for a 1 month sprint should be not taking more than 3 hours. And the sprint review again happens once at the end of each sprint. If the sprint is of 1 month, 4 weeks, then showing this to the customer is like 4 hours. Similarly, the daily scrums, the stand up meeting will be 15 minutes and the sprint planning will be 8 hours. Yes, sir. Now, to tell you about the agile release planning. See, agile release planning is the process in which you determine the number of iterations, the number of iterations, or you call them as sprint if each sprint is of 1 to 4 weeks. The number of iterations or sprints that are needed to complete each release. You have the concept of release, there are few more terms. You have the concept of release, the number of iterations plus customer acceptance will lead to a release. So agile release planning is the process in which you determine the number of iterations or sprints that are needed to complete each release and the feature that each iteration will contain. If you look at here, like the features that each iteration one, it contains four features A, B, C, D. Feature A coming out of two user stories, feature B coming out of user story 3, feature 3 coming out of user story 4 and 5. And then, so, how many iterations should be there per release? Should it be 10, 14, 2? How many? See, the number of iterations or sprints, iteration or sprint, when I say, I mean this, say we discuss about a 4 week iteration or a 4 week sprint. That's what I'm talking to you about. So how many iterations should be there per release is typically driven by the project schedule. Per se, if the release is of 6 months, if the release is 6 months and iterations are per se 2 weeks each iteration is say 2 weeks. So if the release is 6 months long and iterations are 2 weeks, then you would need 13 iterations. 13 into 2 weeks will be 26 weeks. 26 weeks is like 26 by 4. It comes to, closely 6.5 months. So if each release is of 6 months and the iteration is of 2 weeks, then you need 13 iterations to deliver one release. So a series of iterations or sprints plus customer acceptance of that leads to a single release. And the release planning is performed during the sprint zero. During the sprint zero, there is no product increment. This sprint is, or this iteration is dedicated to planning the release. What are you going to deliver in release one? That all planning will be done in this 2 weeks in iteration zero. Release planning is performed during the sprint zero, where there is no product increment delivered. The whole sprint is dedicated for planning the next release. So the product vision, it drives the product roadmap. Product vision is your view of the future. It's the long-term mission. And you use strategies. Strategies explain the approach you will take to realize that future state. So product vision drives the product roadmap drives the release plan. A roadmap is a more tactical plan for what you will do to get there, to get to the vision. So the question is, who does the agile release planning? So this process actually typically involves a collaborative effort among several key roles within the agile team. Usually the participant in agile release planning will include the product owner, the scrum master, the development team, the key stakeholders, such as the sponsor, business analyst, and could be other roles depending on the organization, like the other roles like, UI, UX, designer, testers, operation staff. So the purpose of agile release planning is to create a high level timeline that outlines when major features or capabilities will be delivered. So this process helps align the team's effort with business goal and stakeholder expectations while still allowing for flexibility and iterative development. So the product vision drives the product roadmap drives the release plan. The release plan establishes the iterations, and the iteration plan schedules the feature development. So for each of this user story, the story points are assigned. If this is assigned 2 story points and this is assigned 4 story points per se. That means that the feature D will take 2 times effort of the feature C. Story points are assigned to the user stories.